If Ferrari's new rear wing is legal, the Australian Grand Prix could explode before the first pit stop. Because just days before Melbourne, Lewis Hamilton's SF-26 is hiding something that rivals are already calling impossible to copy. 4,000 kilometers in testing. 0 major failures. 348 kilometers per hour in a straight line. And a hybrid system that regenerates energy more efficiently than anyone expected. But that is not the real shock. The real shock is a radical pivot rear wing that reduces drag by nearly 30% when activated. A diffuser expansion that increases rear downforce by 15%. And a refined 067/6 engine with almost no turbo lag out of slow corners. On a track like Albert Park, where traction and straight-line speed decide everything, this could mean one thing: pole position, track control, and possibly the first statement of the 2026 era. If this works under race conditions, Ferrari does not just compete, they dominate. And there is one hidden detail about Hamilton's adaptation to this new generation car that makes this even more dangerous. Stay with me. Bahrain was not a show. It was a disguise. While most people were watching headline lap times, Ferrari was running structured programs. Long stints. Controlled fuel loads. Hybrid mapping sessions that looked almost repetitive. But that repetition was intentional. Over 4,000 kilometers completed across pre-season. No major mechanical failures. Not one dramatic power unit shutdown. At the start of a completely new regulation cycle, that level of reliability is not normal. It is strategic. And here is where things begin to separate Ferrari from the rest. The 067/6 power unit is not just powerful. It is efficient. Telemetry from Bahrain revealed something subtle. Ferrari's regeneration system recovered energy more cleanly under heavy braking zones. That allowed smoother redeployment on exit. Which means when other cars hesitated mid-throttle, the SF-26 surged forward. Especially in lower gears. That smaller Honeywell turbine inside the updated engine reduces turbo lag significantly. Power does not arrive in a spike. It builds instantly. Linear. Controlled. In slow corner exits, Ferrari showed roughly 2/10 advantage over certain rivals. And Melbourne is full of those corners. Turn 1. Turn 3. The final corner onto the main straight. But that is only half of it. Because Hamilton's long-run simulation revealed something even more interesting. Degradation was steady. Predictable. Roughly 18 hundredths per lap. That is not the absolute best on the grid. But it is stable. And stability is everything in Australia, where track temperature can climb above 40 degrees and punish rear tires without warning. Now here is where it gets serious. Hamilton adapted quickly. Faster than many expected. This new generation demands energy intelligence. You cannot just attack aggressively like in previous eras. You must manage battery deployment mid-corner. You must brake in a way that balances regeneration and rear stability. In Bahrain, Hamilton's steering inputs looked smoother. Less correction. More patience at corner exit. He was not driving the car. He was managing the system. And in certain simulations, he was nearly half a second faster than Leclerc purely because he handled the hybrid phase more efficiently. That tells you something important. Ferrari does not just have upgrades. They have alignment. Driver and machine moving in the same direction. And this is before we even introduce the Melbourne-specific aerodynamic package. Because what they tested in Bahrain was the foundation. What arrives in Australia is sharper. More aggressive. More optimized for Albert Park's layout. Which means everything we just discussed may only represent the baseline. And the real surprise is still ahead. Now we arrive at the upgrade that has rival engineers quietly worried. The expanded diffuser. On paper, it sounds simple. Ferrari found additional legal volume near the rear crash structure and wing supports. They reshaped the airflow channels. They increased the expansion ramp. But the effect is not simple. By accelerating the hot exhaust gases from the 067/6 engine directly into the upper diffuser channels, Ferrari increases rear downforce without adding drag. More grip. Same straight-line speed. That balance is rare. And in medium-speed corners, the gain could be worth roughly 1/10 per lap. In Albert Park, that matters in Sector 2. But the diffuser does not work alone. It is designed to operate in perfect harmony with the new pivot rear wing. This is where things become bold. Instead of a traditional outer hinge system, Ferrari engineered a central pivot mechanism for the upper flap. When activated, it rotates in a way that dramatically increases the slot gap. The result is a massive reduction in drag. Reports suggest gains of up to 12 km per hour on the main straight. That is not a marginal difference. That is overtaking potential. But here is the detail most people are missing. The transition back to full downforce is progressive. Smooth. Controlled. That means when Hamilton approaches turn 1 at high speed, braking stability is not compromised. In Bahrain, data suggested he could brake several meters later without rear instability. And that creates confidence. Confidence allows aggression. Aggression creates track position. Now imagine qualifying in Melbourne. Low fuel. Soft compound. The diffuser increasing rear stability mid-corner. The pivot wing releasing drag down the straight. The hybrid system deploying cleanly with minimal clipping. That combination makes Ferrari extremely dangerous over one lap. Internally, some paddock whispers already label them as favorites for pole. But race day introduces another layer. Heat. Rear tire management. And here is the tension. Hamilton himself admitted the performance window narrows when temperatures rise. If the rear tires overheat around lap 12, the advantage could fade. But if they manage that window correctly, the SF-26 becomes incredibly difficult to follow and pass. Because the blown exhaust interaction with the diffuser cleans the wake behind the car. Less turbulence. More stable air. Which means even the second Ferrari could benefit in slipstream battles. And this is where everything connects. A reliable engine. An efficient hybrid system. An expanded diffuser. A revolutionary rear wing. A driver who has adapted his style to suit the new generation. Days before the first Grand Prix of the season, Ferrari is not arriving hopeful. They are arriving prepared. And if all these elements align under the Australian sun, something extraordinary could happen. Not just a competitive weekend, but a statement. A declaration that the 2026 era may not belong to the team everyone expected. And the real test begins the moment those lights go out in Melbourne. But here is where the pressure truly begins. Because Australia is not just another race. It is the first race of a completely new era. And when the lights go out in Melbourne, every weakness will be exposed instantly. The asphalt at Albert Park evolves rapidly across the weekend. Grip increases session by session. Wind direction shifts unpredictably. Track temperatures can spike above 40 degrees in the race. That is where Ferrari's narrow performance window becomes the central question. If the rear tires overheat under sustained pressure, the advantage in qualifying could disappear by lap 15. But if Hamilton manages the hybrid deployment with the precision he showed in Bahrain, the SF-26 could maintain a consistent rhythm that others struggle to match. And rhythm, in this new generation, is everything. These cars are no longer about pure aggression. They are about synchronization. Brake regeneration must align with corner entry balance. Throttle application must align with battery state. Aerodynamic load must align with tire temperature. It is a system. And Hamilton seems to understand that system deeply. In Bahrain, his long runs were not flashy. They were controlled. Measured lift and coast phases. Strategic energy harvesting before overtaking simulations. He was thinking 5 laps ahead. That mindset matters in Melbourne, where safety cars are common and strategy windows shift instantly. Now imagine this scenario. Hamilton secures pole on Saturday, using the pivot wing advantage to maximize straight line speed. On Sunday, temperatures rise. Rear tires begin to fade for rivals. But Ferrari's diffuser provides just enough stability to protect traction. Hamilton manages battery deployment carefully, avoiding clipping down the main straight. Lap after lap, the gap grows by a few tenths. Not dramatic. Relentless. And psychologically, that would be massive. Because this is not just about winning a race. It is about sending a message. A 7-time champion in red. A team that endured years of rebuilding. A power unit that many questioned against the new generation. If Ferrari dominates the opening race, the narrative of the season changes immediately. Sponsors react. Teams accelerate development. The pressure shifts to Red Bull and Mercedes. But there is still one final layer. Because the pivot rear wing, as innovative as it is, sits at the edge of interpretation. Rivals are watching closely. If it proves too effective, scrutiny will intensify. Technical directives could follow. So Australia is more than a performance test. It is a political test. If Ferrari wins convincingly and the wing remains untouched by regulation changes, they gain not only points. They gain momentum. And momentum in a fresh regulation cycle is dangerous. We are just days away now. The freight has arrived. The garages are being assembled. Engineers are running final simulations late into the night. And somewhere inside that Ferrari garage, Lewis Hamilton knows something. He knows whether this car truly responds the way he needs. He knows whether the balance holds under heat. He knows whether the hybrid system gives him confidence when it matters most. The rest of us will find out when the lights go out in Melbourne. And if the data from Bahrain was only a preview, the Australian Grand Prix might not just start a season. It might redefine it. And this is where everything comes full circle. Because for Lewis Hamilton, Australia is not just the first race of the season. It is the first real verdict of his Ferrari chapter. New regulations, new power unit philosophy, new aerodynamic concepts, new team dynamics. And yet, in testing, he did not look like a driver adapting. He looked like a driver recalibrated. There is a difference. Adapting means surviving change. Recalibrating means mastering it. The 2026 cars demand smoother braking traces to optimize regeneration. They punish over-aggressive throttle inputs with battery instability. They reward drivers who understand energy flow as much as racing lines. And Hamilton has leaned into that complexity. His feedback in Bahrain focused on micro-adjustments. Brake bias shifts corner to corner. Energy harvesting targets mid-stint. Subtle steering weight changes as tire temperature evolved. That is not surface-level comfort. That is deep integration. And when a driver feels integrated with a machine, performance becomes repeatable. Now think about the psychological layer. Ferrari enters Melbourne labeled as a possible qualifying favorite. Red Bull is considered the race benchmark. Mercedes is quietly improving. But if Hamilton delivers both, if he secures pole using the pivot wing advantage, if he manages degradation better than expected, if the 067/6 engine maintains its thermal stability in race conditions, then something shifts. Not just on the timing screens, inside the paddock. Because the first race of a new era sets belief, and belief drives development. If Ferrari proves that their aerodynamic interpretation and hybrid efficiency are not only legal but dominant, rival teams will be forced to react. Copy concepts, challenge legality, accelerate upgrades. That creates instability elsewhere. And stability is Ferrari's biggest weapon right now. Over 4,000 kilometers completed in testing. Minimal software interruptions. No catastrophic failures. A diffuser that enhances rear grip without sacrificing straight-line speed. A rear wing that reduces drag dramatically while preserving braking stability. A power unit optimized for hot circuits like Melbourne. And a driver who understands how to extract performance from a narrow window. But here is the final tension. Australia can expose even the best simulations. Wind gusts through Sector 2. Safety car interruptions. Unexpected temperature spikes. If the rear tires overheat too quickly, Ferrari's strategy could unravel. If hybrid deployment miscalculates under pressure, straight-line advantage fades. And in a field this tight, half a second can disappear instantly. That is why this race feels different. It is not just about raw speed. It is about execution under uncertainty. And execution is where champions separate themselves. Hamilton has built a career on managing chaos, on reading race evolution, on controlling energy when others panic. So as we sit just days away from the Australian Grand Prix, the question is no longer whether Ferrari has improved. The data says they have. The question is whether this combination of innovation, efficiency, and experience will withstand the intensity of the first lights out of the season. Because if it does, if the SF-26 performs exactly as the numbers suggest, then Melbourne will not just witness a competitive Ferrari. It will witness a statement. A declaration that the 2026 era might begin with red at the front. And once momentum like that starts, it is very difficult to stop.